Thank you, Ambassador Bob Blake, for a very kind word and kind introductions. Beyond my expectation, of course. Honorable Ambassador David Merrill, President of USINDO, and Ambassador Ted Osius, U.S. ASEAN Business Council, Minister Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita, Ibu Mari Pangestu, Managing Directors of World Bank, and all Ambassador Rosan, and my wife is here, Yanti. Most important woman in this room. Because I want to go home tomorrow. Otherwise, I am in trouble. Honorable Ambassador, former Ambassador Indonesia, John Donovan, Ambassador Yum, and distinguished officials, CEO, business leaders. It is an honor for me to give speech here to all of you, member of U.S. ASEAN Business Council and U.S. Indonesia Society, and appreciation to the U.S. ASEAN Business Council and as well as U.S. Indonesia Society in Washington, D.C. for inviting me to this gala dinner. In the midst of the worst health pandemic known in the past 100 years and the recent economic and geopolitical crisis, the synergy between the government of Indonesia and the private sector has become an even more important pillars to the stability and strength of Indonesian economics, notwithstanding with partners from US. I know that the platinum and the gold sponsor of this gala dinner has been in Indonesia. Some of them is more than 50 years. So I appreciate that, including Freeport and other companies. Allow me now to brief an update on the recent progress we made in Indonesia and more importantly, to share with you our economic objectives, the underlying rationales and approach, and our optimism to achieve those targets and more. I'm pleased to report to you that the Indonesian economy has done very well, and equally important that the emerging and developing economies of ASEAN have clearly become the driver of the savior of the global economy. The economic rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic continues at a rapid pace in Indonesia. In fact, we have not only returned to the average pre-COVID GDP level around 5%, but since Q2 2022, our economy continued to gain momentum during the recent quarters of 2022, and we expect that year on year, we can achieve around 5.2% in the economic growth. The latest World Economic Outlook report released in October 2022, the International Monetary Fund kept economic growth forecast for Indonesia is at around 5.3% in 2022, and see Indonesian economic to grow among the fastest in the world at around 5% in 2023. Indonesia also integral part of emerging and developing economies of Asia, where the regional economic expansion is expected to be even faster in 2023, around 4.9%, than in 2022, around 4.4%. While the global growth is bracing for another year of potentially slower growth, at around 2.7% next year from 3.2% in 2022. On the domestic growth, I want to highlight several fundamental features. Most importantly, the recent growth that have been broad-based. The resurgence of the domestic demand, both consumption and investment, has been consistently supported by the robust external sector performance. On the trade front, Indonesia recorded 29 consecutive months of trade surplus, since May 2020, and the longest reported since the outbreak of 1997 East Asian crisis. We expect our total trade surplus to reach close to US 60 billion in 2022, significantly larger than annual trade surplus around 22 to 26 billion during the last commodity booms in 2010 and 2011. The strength of the rebound can also be particularly seen from the strong sentiment of the production side of the economy. The S&P Global highest manufacturing PMI in September is the highest print since January that pointed to the 13 consecutive months the growth in the factory activity, which is in the last PMI, our PMI is around 53.7%. And over other data, the rupiah has been stable, even though there is a depreciation, but in compare with other peer countries, we are more on the safety zone, as well as our debt level is lower than 40% of our GDP. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the recent pandemic has also further strengthened our conviction and resolution to continue for the ongoing economic infrastructure agenda and to pursue ambitious economic reforms. While the early push for infrastructure has focused on the more fundamental needs such as housing, power, transport, the current and future focus will expand to the area of sustainable development goals. The new era of infrastructure project will integrate closely our traditional infrastructure needs along with our effort to transitioning to the green economy and deepening the penetration of the digital economy. The new and ongoing project combines at least several, if not all, of the following objectives. One is on the clean energy. Second is equity and gender balance. The third is information and communication technology. The fourth is public health, and the fifth is food security. The diversity of our infrastructure investment project is clearly shown from the following example list. Investment on data center, for instance, to more than double the capacity that we have today. This is to support the management of public data, including for the financial related data, health, and other personal data. Second is about seawall project in north coastal part of Java Island for climate resilient infrastructure to support water sanitation and also the highway road. The third is carbon capture project for the clean energy system. The fourth is development of our own COVID-19 vaccines and potentially for future vaccines. We just produced the mRNA vaccines and inaugurated by the President a few weeks back. Hydropower and other alternative renewable energy to continue support for the power capacity. Food estate to safeguard our food security. We value the public and private sector partnership in realizing the investment. Reform and international cooperation are part of our key strategy to attract funding from the private investor and other sources. In reforming the economy, we adopted the omnibus law approach, where multi-sectors reform are unified under one forum and one reform. As you know, we passed the job creation law in November 2020. Simultaneously, we reformed 71 existing law on the 11 economic cluster. We are optimistic that the financial sector's omnibus law will pass by the Parliament as early of end 2022. On the international cooperation front, Indonesia is playing key roles in the region and global initiative. At the end of this year, Indonesia will chairing the country of ASEAN, and Indonesia continue to committed proponent of ASEAN economic community. We can also look forward to wider regional integration with parties outside ASEAN through trade agreements such as Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is the first introduced in 2011 when Indonesia chaired ASEAN. Despite the international geopolitical issues, under the G20 presidency, we tabled 4 main agenda relevant to the emerging market and likely to continue color the future agenda of G20 meetings. Those are global public health system, economic digital transformations, food and energy security, and green energy transformation and transition, as well as the food security. Indonesia look forward for engaging the Partnership for Global Infrastructures and collaboration initiated by G7 economy to support financing of the infrastructure development. We welcome the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity initiative launched by President Joe Biden. And I think Indonesia also supporting the agreement that has been done through TIFA, and we expect that Indonesia proposing with Ambassador Catherine Tai, that the extension of limited trade deals are expected so that Indonesia can have a more closer collaboration with US, as well as to expand the market access in the US as complementary to the IPEF, especially and also for the PGII. As an emerging COVID-19 pandemic and seeking some stability in the midst of uncertainty from the geopolitical tension, Indonesia has a lot to offer to the global investor via the International Cooperation Initiative, including at least the stable part of regional and global value chain, large market, especially given our population size and growing per capita income. Indonesia will benefit the demographic bonus, which will be in Indonesia till 2035. So we have a young generation, almost 99 million, that they are, most of them are digitally literate, and the market size of Indonesia digital market in this year is around 70 billion, and we expect it to be growing to 125 in 2025, and around 300 billion in 2030. So this is the market for transformation of digital that Indonesia expect this will become another driver for Indonesian economics. And Indonesia also the largest part of ASEAN, our economy almost close to more than 40% of ASEAN, and regional ASEAN in the last 20 years is politically stable because Indonesia is part of the key ASEAN 5 has done the democratic transition of government that make Indonesia becoming the third largest economic in the region, as well as the largest political and democratic country in the region, as well as Indonesia is the largest Muslim population country with democratic and moderation. So I think this is the value that we would like that the US investor looking at Indonesia. And we also understand that the global economic outlook for ASEAN, we will be growing around 4 to 5%, as well as the growth of China around 4%. And India is expected to grow at 6%. So in short, we believe that the futures of the global economic growth in the next few years will be in Indo-Pacific. So we would like to welcome USINDO to support the optimism in the region so that we can leave this dark cloud behind us. We would like us to be optimists, and I think the winner is only with a people with optimism. And of course, Ibu Mari is here, and I think World Bank will stand behind us, if not in front of us. I was Ibu Mari, I was in the parliament when Ibu Mari became minister. So I think with today's role of Ibu Mari to oversee some of the emerging countries as well. So we would like that Ibu Mari will support what Indonesia will do in the next 5 or 10 years. With that note, let me stop here and thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.